This entitled mum is stalking her son at a school outing in a shopping center. What sinister plan does she have for her son when his friends naively invite her to join them for lunch? Happy birthday if today's your birthday and on with the revamped show. The backstory. My dad has an older sister we'll call EA, entitled aunt, and always, even as a child, my grandparents treated her like an angel, and treated my dad like a piece of crap. For example, when my dad was in college, he wore clothes that had holes that were about 3 inches wide, and the tradition in China is that you get a lot of new clothes in the new year. His mum told him that they were going to get him a brand new coat for the winter, and my dad was really excited. A few days before New Year's though, his parents said that they can't get him a new coat. The coat they were going to give him cost 1,000 yuan, $143 US. But can you guess where that money went? EA's freaking boyfriend. How can your son like that? Here's something worse. The coat they gave the boyfriend was 2,000 yuan. You could have just split the dang money so they both have new coats. The second my dad was out of college, he started working his butt off. He was able to give his parents money every year, even when they treated him like crap. Later finding out that every year, all that money goes to EA. But that's a different story. You get the gist. My dad treats his parents really well, and all that effort equals nothing, or it goes straight to EA. The story. For some reason, they hated my dad, mum, me, and siblings. This happened a few years ago when my mum was giving birth to my brother. I didn't realize how bad this story was until a few years ago because I did not understand. So I was born in Beijing. My mum was somehow able to foresee that prices in houses were going to go up in there. So she and my dad worked hard to buy as many houses as they could. However, there is a limit to how many houses you can buy in Beijing, but my mum was able to find a loophole. She bought the house with her own money, but put the house under someone else's name. She bought a house and put the house under my dad's mum's name. My mum paid for all the renovations. Important later. Fast forward about 4 years. My mum was pregnant with my brother. There is a law in China that says having no more than one baby, so they came to the US to legally have a baby. This is when EA saw her chance. She took advantage of my parents' absence to manipulate my grandparents, telling them to put the house my mum bought 4 years ago under EA's husband. Obviously my grandparents caved in really easily and transferred it. Luckily my mum's brother, I don't know how, was able to find out that they transferred it. Now we were still in the US, so we weren't able to deal with this immediately. My parents called their lawyers to have a court summon for EA. She took her time and waited for the last warning to finally come to court. She brought my grandparents along too. According to my uncle, she was smirking the entire time, waiting for the trial to begin, thinking that our side of the court can't really prove it, while low-key insulting our side of the family. I don't know how to translate this, but she said things like, "My brother was always naughty, probably also passed it down to his children too," or "My brother was such a coward, he didn't even want to come, because he knew I'd win." Then came the sweet revenge. The court first asked EA to talk. She said that the house was bought by grandmother and was then given to her husband, obviously with no proof. Then my uncle with the lawyers took out a record, clearly stating that my mother purchased this house with her own money. I wish I could have seen EA's face, but my uncle described it as a dark green, and maybe a little purple too. The judge then asked EA if this was true. The judge stated if she was to lie, she would end up with much worse than just giving the house back. Surprisingly, she still stood her ground and claimed that the house was indeed her husband's, who got the house from grandmother and paid for renovations. That's where she messed up. My uncle and the lawyers triumphantly took out another paper saying that my mother paid for all the renovations, clearly not my aunt's husband. That's when she broke down like a fitch, started crying, screaming an undecipherable language. She was soon taken to jail for 1 to 2 years. I forgot, but holy crap, she deserved it. Honestly, I'm a little surprised that they actually ended up winning and not losing the house. I thought the judge would be like, hey, you used a loophole and you technically put it in their name. I guess it's just really lucky that they had a judge that used a little common sense. Maybe that's something that happens all the time, or the judge themselves did that. They've got like 3 siblings all with a house in their name and they're like, well, I don't want to lose my houses, so overruled. I think that's how law works. So this is a story about one of my friends I had in school. He always wanted to be vegetarian because he didn't like eating meat. His body wouldn't digest meat well enough, and he likes veggies more than meat. Also, he didn't want the animals to get killed and so on. His mother doesn't get behind that, and always forces him to eat meat, or sneaks meat into every single dish he ate. This story is from 6 years ago, when all of us were in 6th grade. We were on a school trip to the mall. It was more of a day spent in the mall with friends on a normal day, but we were in school uniforms and our teachers were around us having their own fun. His mum came there without any of us knowing, and she was apparently sneaking around behind us, keeping a check on us the whole time, and we didn't notice. We had a lot of fun that day, playing games, roaming around, playing games on the devices in the tech stores. We're kids. We're dumb, I know. We aren't supposed to. But come on. We played tag all around the mall, and also the activities the school had set up for us to do. Now that day at the mall was almost over, around 3 PM, and we were supposed to get lunch on our own with the money we brought. It was informed beforehand, don't worry, and we decided to go to the food court. If it's not a thing in your place, it's basically a huge place designated to all the food stores, Subway, Taco Bell, KFC and so on, with a crap ton of tables in the middle. We chose that so that everyone could get whatever they wanted to get. His mum then pounced on us while we were deciding where we were going to sit, and was just really awkward. Here's how it went.
Hey!
Hey mom, what are you doing here?
Nothing much, just keeping a check on you all.
Awkward silence. Hey auntie, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, what about you?
EM whispers to her son.
What are you doing with him? You're not planning on eating vegetarian, are you?
Forgot to mention I'm vegetarian myself. Never had meat before. I'm doing well. Wanna sit with us? Dumb me.
Oh yes, of course. I just saw you guys here. I didn't know you guys were gonna be here.
She definitely did. We had printed notices given to us to give to our parents and get them signed. Oh, sure, come sit with us then. Again, I'm dumb, I know. We go get what we want to eat. I go to Subway, don't judge me here, and he goes to McDonald's to get a veggie patty or something. I don't know the menu for McDonald's, never gone to one before, and his mother goes with him. Note, from here, I'm talking off my friend's perspective from now on. What are you doing here? Why are you here? And how did you find us?
I was here before you came here. I was watching what you guys were doing.
Why are you following us? We've been over this, I can handle myself.
I know you in and out. You can't, especially with that guy,
me,
around.
Okay, now just don't sit with us, okay? Please. Sit on the other side of the area if you wanna. I don't wanna be embarrassed.
No, you're my son. You don't tell me what to do. I'm sitting with you. No ifs, no buts.
Okay, now let's get food. I don't know if it's a thing everywhere, but McDonald's places here have a separate counter for vegetarians and non-vegetarians. My friend goes into the vegetarian line, and EM sees it and gets mad.
What are you doing in the vegetarian line? Come here.
No mom, I want to eat the vegetarian burger today. EM pulls him out of the line by his arms and holds him into the non-vegetarian line. She forces him to get some non-vegetarian burger and then lets him go. We sit down together on the table we decide to sit in, and EM sits next to my friend. I don't mind if people eat non-vegetarian food around me. It's not a big deal for me, and I don't believe in forcing my diets or preferences onto others. The only time I might be uncomfortable is the bones. They make me gag. If it's the case, I just probably look down into my food and just eat quietly.
I hope you don't mind us eating meat. If you can't help it, you can move over to the next table. Maybe also give us some mom and son time.
I'm good, I don't really mind. And we eat our food quietly. After eating our food, we headed off without EM because we had to go back to school with the other students. Here my friend explained what happened when we were at the McDonald's and how he felt so embarrassed by his mother. He was really angry but couldn't do anything about it because it was his mum. If the kid was like really little and was just fussy with their food, you could kind of understand a parent being like, well, you have to eat it anyway because that's what we made for dinner and I'm not going to make you a special dinner just because you don't want to eat it. But this situation is very different. They're obviously old enough to make intelligent and informed decisions about what dietary options they want to have. I don't get what makes her so obsessed that she's forcing him to not be a vegetarian. I mean, sure, disagree with him if you want, or if he's deficient in some sort of vitamin or mineral because he's not eating meat, go take him to a doctor and find some supplements. But again, neither of those things are the case. They are literally just obsessed for some crazy reason. My theory is that it's some sort of power trip and they're using this as the excuse. If it wasn't this, it would just be something else. Well, it finally happened. I finally met an entitled witch of a woman a few days ago, and I fully regret ever hoping I would. So I work at a resort restaurant that manages the neighboring hotel pool and pool bar every summer. My job is basically to help the bartender with whatever he or she needs, as well as serve the guests. Well, this year, the distant and scarier cousin of the common cold and flu has been terrorizing the world, so we have to follow a new set of policies to ensure people are safe. One of our new policies is that our hours are split into thirds, and reservations are required for each one if you want to get in. The policy exists to keep the pool's population under control, to guarantee guests get a spot at the pool, and to keep people safe, especially on weekends when it gets really busy. So to keep the peace, and to help me and the bartender out, the resort hires a temp security guard every week to help us out. Enter Jeff, one of the stars of our story. He's a big help to all of us out at the pool, and isn't afraid to say no to a guest. I'm a big wimp about it. One more important thing to note is that we're also responsible for upholding pool rules because we don't have a lifeguard. One of our two commonly broken rules are no jumping and no climbing. Our pool has a decorative waterfall that is probably about 5 or so feet tall, built with incredibly narrow steps and a platform at the top where the water falls from. This waterfall is located at a part of the pool where the water is barely a foot deep, and kids love climbing it to get to the top. This is a major no-no because if they were to slip and fall, it could end badly. We've also had kids literally jumping into our shallow hot tub, which is also a big no-no. We have 2 signs that specifically state this is not allowed, and they've been there for years, even with the warnings. We could get into serious trouble if a kid were to be injured under our watch, especially Jeff. With all of that out of the way, let's begin, shall we? This happened on Friday, when the Labor Day weekend began. Aside from me and Jeff, we were working with a bartender, Jackie. Lara, a hostess from the restaurant, was helping out at the time of the story, but left a little later. We had a somewhat slow day up until the final session, where we were slammed. Guests came for drinks and food, and business picked up pretty quickly. Not too long after we opened, a couple approached us to open a tab and order a drink. Enter Karen. You can blame Jeff and Jackie for that name. And Lyle, her quiet husband. Karen ordered a frozen margarita, which I proceeded to type into our point of sale system, while Jackie prepared the drink. It's important to note that in the past, we used to have a machine that made these drinks, but after it broke and was taken away, we've started making our own. Lara asked Jackie if she could take the opportunity to learn how to make the drink, which is actually okay at our workplace, since we're all required to have certification regardless of our position. Jackie agreed and taught Lara how to make the drink before serving it to the couple. They signed their newly opened tab, took the drink, and left. So at one point, Jeff and I noticed a young boy, about 10 or so, was climbing up the waterfall, so Jeff made his way over to stop him. This boy, who I'll call Sam, was apparently Karen and Lyle's son. Karen noticed Jeff talking to Sam, and then Sam slowly making his way down the waterfall. As Jeff walked away, she quickly approached him and started talking to him.
What did you say to my kid?
Ma'am, I was just asking for your kid not to climb the waterfall. Can you make sure he doesn't climb up there anymore?
Why did you do that?
Well, because it's against the rule, ma'am. Your kid could easily slip and fall and hurt himself, and I'm just making sure that doesn't happen.
A rule? What rule? I've come here for years and there's never been a rule like that before.
It doesn't matter, ma'am. It's still against the rules, and you can see it clearly printed on the sign behind me.
Well, then I'm going to tell David about this.
David is one of the upper managers. Fine, but he'll tell you the same thing I did. About a few minutes later, Lyle approached us with the drink he ordered. He asked why the drink tasted different. We mentioned we made it from scratch, to which he left and was swiftly replaced by Karen.
This tastes disgusting. I want another drink.
I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am.
Why is this so different now? Where's your machine?
It broke a couple of months ago, so we're making them from scratch now.
Well, it's gross. I want a different drink. Give me a pina colada instead.
I didn't charge her for this drink, and Jackie made the drink in about a minute. The machine for this drink was still operational, thankfully. Karen took the drink and left without so much as a thank you. We noticed later on how she was standing next to her chair, talking into a phone for nearly half an hour. By then, Jeff had already filled us in on what had happened with Sam and the conversation with Karen, so we wondered if she was talking to David like she claimed she would. Jeff decided to call David to ask and discuss his actions, while Jackie decided to call our boss, Drew, to give our side of the story, including the drink, before he possibly heard another story and we could get in trouble. Drew came out first and we pointed out the lady while she was on her phone. At the same time, Jeff got off the phone with David, saying he never got a call from Karen and that this situation wouldn't be acceptable, even if she did complain. We filled in Drew on the issue, and he encouraged us to call him if the issue escalated. Well, it did. Sam was at it again, and other kids had joined him. Only this time, they weren't just climbing up the waterfall again, but were also taking turns, taking running leaps into our very small and shallow hot tub, and chasing each other around the edge of the pool, narrowly dodging adults. Jeff told us to call Drew, who then proceeded to call security. At the sight of a security guard approaching them, Karen quickly got up and stormed out of the gate. Later on, I saw Karen, Lyle, and Sam picking up their stuff and heading towards the gate to leave. I could have just let them go. We have a policy that as long as the first tab is signed, we can still close it with an auto gratuity, but I wanted to be nice, so I politely called them over to close their tab. I shouldn't have done that. I should have brought the tab to them, not called them over. If I didn't, they wouldn't have overheard and reacted to the conversation between Jackie and the couple in front of them were having. The couple in front of us apparently came to us for the hot tub. Over the past few months, our hot tub has been having major issues that can't easily be fixed. Our pool is almost as old as our resort, so it's common to find some cracks here and there. However, the hot tub has hit the age where these cracks aren't just for show anymore and are actually causing serious leaking, to the point where the entire tub can empty out overnight. There's also an issue where the water isn't heating, which might be a result of constantly keeping the tub filled so it won't be completely emptied. We've had a lot of complaints about it, but from what I hear, the construction costs and requirements to fix it would likely be major. So at the moment it's just a little pool with jets. When the couple complained about the hot tub, Jackie apologized and offered 2 free beers on top of the 2 they were buying. As I was helping Karen and Lyle, Jackie said the words, "on the house," which Karen apparently heard over all the background noise and music, the several feet of distance between her and Jackie, and how Jackie was speaking under a mask. This is when I heard Karen's voice for the first time, and let me tell you, it wasn't what I expected. I'll be honest that I've listened to a lot of these stories online and heard many impressions of an entitled woman, but none of them were anywhere near this lady. Her voice wasn't the over-the-top crazy, bratty, or exaggerated type like many people online use. Hey, that's me. It was a cold, quiet, intimidating tone that felt real enough to make anyone's skin crawl, while never once raising her voice, like she was going to kill someone she'd hated for years and wasn't afraid to hide the malice in her voice. Okay, well, challenge accepted, now I gotta change the voice.
I'm sorry, did she say on the house?
I'm just sounding like a snake. Yeah, it works. Let's run with that. Yes, I think she did.
Why do they get free drinks? Why can't we get free drinks?
Well, ma'am, we did give you that pina colada free of charge.
Why do we have to pay?
Jackie overhearing Karen's question. The couple in front of you were just complaining about the hot tub. Were you in the hot tub?
No, it wasn't.
As Lyle's pen was a millimeter away from the paper, Karen snatched it away from him and handed it straight to us, while Lyle blinked and slowly tried to process what the heck was happening.
We're not paying for this. Take it.
I started stuttering before Jackie just said, "It's fine, we'll take care of it." Lyle, who was still holding the black checkbook and pen, awkwardly handed them back to me, while Karen gave the ticket to Jackie, leaning forward with an intense, cold expression.
What's your name?
You could tell from the sound of her voice this wasn't going to end well. Jackie, stuttering. Jackie. Karen glared at us and left without a word, with her husband and son following behind. Jackie was genuinely afraid that this woman was going to report her and called Drew Drew right away. Drew came by later to void the ticket and explain he'd talked to the other managers about it, assuring Jackie she wasn't in trouble. They went into a back room, and as they were coming out, an employee from the front desk came by asking for Jackie. Apparently, Karen complained to the front desk about everyone. She complained that when she asked for a drink, we completely ignored her and never got her the drink she wanted. In her words, Jackie was rude and disrespectful. She also complained about Jeff, but it was ignored as Jeff was doing his job. Fortunately for us and unfortunately for Karen, she has spoken to one of the nicest guys at the front desk, who was very familiar with Jackie, and approached her to ask her for her side of the story, because in his words, Jackie never gets complaints. We gave him the whole story, with Drew there for support, and he just laughed, assuring Jackie she was completely fine. We were all still fuming for hours about the entire thing. Surprisingly and unsurprisingly, Karen and her family showed up at the pool again the next day. I say surprisingly because after the fiasco the day prior, you'd think she would have gone to the other pool. But it's unsurprising because it was Saturday, and the other pool was likely far too full for her to switch. Even if she demanded and complained, they probably wouldn't have budged the reservation list for 3 more people. Sam didn't climb on the waterfall again, but did try a few times. Jeff said that every time Sam approached the waterfall, he'd look to see if Jeff was watching, and when he saw he was, he'd turn and walk away. I honestly think he was just being a kid, seeing what he could get away with and for how long before someone told him to stop and he would listen. I'm sure a lot of us used to act like this when we were kids too. As for Karen and Lyle, they were watching Jeff like a hawk, switching between looking at him to looking at Karen's phone. Not sure why, and I doubt I'll ever know. They were probably waiting for him to talk to Sam again, but since Sam behaved that day, Jeff didn't have to do a thing. Karen apparently lodged a formal complaint the night prior after complaining to the front desk, which prompted a surprise visit by an upper manager, Tina, on Saturday. Tina mentioned how Karen's family had actually been frequent guests at the resort, almost staying here 20 times, and were even considering membership, which would basically grant them more privileges and would have to treat them like royalty. That explained why Karen knew David by name and why they acted the way they did. A lot of members are familiar with the management team, so this wasn't a surprise. Tina assured us that we weren't in any trouble and Jackie's name wasn't involved anywhere in the report, which was a huge relief. She simply came to listen to our side of the story and see if we were okay, since, in her words, guests tend to over-exaggerate their stories like this all the time. I'm sure I'll maybe meet that Karen again someday. I just hope that next time things will be better and that she was just having a bad day. Maybe it's just hopeless optimism though. I'm just glad management was understanding enough to listen to our side. It's gotta be a tough balance for management because on the one hand, you need to keep your staff happy because they're the ones running everything. But on the other hand, the customers are the one who are giving you the money to pay your staff. As much as it sucks having managers sometimes, both from the customer point of view and from an employee point of view, it's kind of good that there's someone in the middle who finds that balance and tries to work everything out. That is, if you actually have a good manager. That really should be the definition of somebody who's a good boss and a good manager. Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.